Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub. My name's Lucas, this is Corey, and we're your Fox Fantasy Football Insiders.
For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. Those of you new to the show, if you can't tell by the name, we focus on sleepers for your daily fantasy lineups. And we're going to talk about those sleepers for this week as well as review last week. It's been about a week and a half since we've been on air. Last week was Thanksgiving week, so our bellies and hearts are full and our pockets are full as well because we had a pretty good week on Thanksgiving week. So we're going to talk about our picks for this week. But before we do that, I want to talk about Sports Hub quick. All new menu debuting soon here at the Sports Hub. Be sure to stop by. They're open for lunch and dinner all week long, including brunch from 10 to 1 on Saturdays and Sundays. There's so much to do here at the Hub. They've got a ton of games, shuffleboard, golden tee, bar bingo every other Saturday. It's a great place to eat, a great place to play. They've got daily specials each and every day of the week, including homemade pizza, hand-battered fresh fish on Fridays. Just a great place to grab a meal, a great place to come and play with your friends, grab a beer. Make sure to support the Sports Hub. They are the ones who make this show possible.
Exactly. Thank you, Sports Hub, once again. Corey, you want to talk about the Thanksgiving games?
Let's talk about Thanksgiving games. Bring up that chalkboard. I'll lead off. It was a pretty good week for me personally. I won the battle of the Buffalo receivers.
Yes.
Cole Beasley versus Emmanuel Sanders. Cole Beasley finished wide receiver 10. Now you'll notice if you've been following this show, our standard metric for tracking success is how people perform against their slotted value. That doesn't really apply when we're only talking about 3 games. Right. But looking over my pick, Cedric Wilson was kind of the big sleeper pick across the board for the Thanksgiving games. He finished with 20.4 points. He finished as wide receiver 5. Jamal Williams had 13.3 points. He finished RB5. And actually, a lot of people might call me lucky for that pick because DeAndre Swift went down, but a lot of Jamal Williams' production came prior to DeAndre Swift going down. Actually, in the second half there, Jamal Williams really didn't do much. It looks like he was going to have a much bigger game than he did. Right. And of course, Cole Beasley we touched on. So a solid week across the board. I'm pleased with the way my picks turned out, and I'm sure if you rostered these 3 guys, you probably spent the rest of your money on big money guys. Hopefully Dak Prescott, that Dallas-Las Vegas game was a fantasy dream.
Awesome game.
One of our key takeaways, that of course the Detroit-Chicago game was a fantasy nightmare. But those 2 games, both very close games, and a ton of fantasy points in that Dallas-Las Vegas game. Maybe a good amount of defensive points in the Detroit-Chicago game. But if you put those 3 guys in your lineup, you probably had a lot of money to use on higher profile names and hopefully had a really good week and made a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. Corey, I was going to text you. I was going to call you a wizard about the whole Jamal Williams play. Obviously, it sucks that Swift went down, but I mean, Jamal, that was just a great pick. I was like, man, he is a wizard. He's got a magic 8-ball or something, and he's making it happen. But for my picks, Corey and I agreed on Cedric Wilson together, and he was the big star of the week. Emmanuel Sanders coming in with 5.8 points. And this is just the funniest story. We filmed the show. I picked Adam Troutman for my last sleeper, and of course, I edit the show. And oh, look at that, there's notification. He gets a sprained MCL. He's out. So then I pivot real quick and I go with Marquise Goodwin for the Chicago Bears, and then he gets injured. So I guess it was just destiny. It was not meant to be that last pick. No matter what happens, there was an injury. So it sucks, but it's the game. It's the game. It happens.
We shared another goose egg this week as well. Our deep sleeper, Malik Turner, went off for 0. I wish I had an answer to that.
Yeah,
I mean, he's appeared to be the next man up for Dallas in all of their games leading up to Thanksgiving, and the Thanksgiving game he barely played. It was Noah Brown who soaked up those snaps. So hopefully he jumped on Noah Brown, not Malik Turner. Noah Brown didn't have a great game, but that was the workload we were targeting with that pick. And he did have a few catches, I believe, but Malik Turner barely played him and didn't play a ton of snaps. So
what a good game, though. That was a fun one.
That was a fun one to watch.
Awesome.
That was a fun one to watch. So we're going to jump right into it. Let's get into our picks for this week.
Let's do it.
Week 13. All right, I'm kicking off this week, and I'm going with T.Y. Hilton of the Indianapolis Colts. His DraftKings price is only $4,400, and this is just your standard T.Y. versus the Houston Texans game. He is the Houston Slayer. He has averaged 18.3 fantasy points per game against Houston in his career. It's worth noting that he actually left 3 of these 19 games early due to injuries. So he's played 19 career games against Houston. He's only finished 16 of them. He's exceeded 25 points versus Houston 7 times in those 16 full career games. That's almost 50% of the time he exceeds 25 points. That is just a remarkable sample size. 5 of those 7 25-plus point games came on the road at Houston, which of course is where this game is going to be played. And then finally, the last interesting thing here is he's exceeded 35 points against Houston 3 times. All 3 of those times came on the road. So he's due. He didn't have a huge game against Houston, their first matchup, because he'd left that game with an injury. I think he had 4 catches for 80 yards at that point when he left. So this is the one, I think.
The pattern is there. If it's not T.Y. Hilton, it's T.Y. Houston. For some reason, whenever he goes to Houston, I don't know if it goes to a special bar and has like a certain meal or something, but he always plays well here, and I feel confident plugging him in even in redraft.
There's not a narrative.
The track record.
Yeah, there's not a narrative more favoring one player versus a certain opponent in fantasy football, maybe history, than T.Y. Hilton versus Houston.
And the team knows it too. Like it's 100%. They're going to get him the ball and expect a good game. And for cheap value too, like you can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Definitely.
T.Y.
Awesome. T.Y. All right, so for my first Week 13 sleeper, I'm going with Russell Gage of the Atlanta Falcons, and I swallowed deeply. I'm going back to the Falcons. Oh gosh, here we go. There's some risk to this pick, obviously, as he is a Falcon. As Gage put up a goose egg in Week 10, so it's nothing. I mean, that was a couple weeks ago. You don't like to see that. However, that goose was followed by a solid run where he caught 5 receptions in Week 11 and 6 in Week 12. And that's a total of 15 targets in the last 2 games, so they're getting him involved. Calvin Ridley is still out, and there's no return in sight, so that should let the target door open up for Gage even more. We know the Falcons' offense will not run a ton on Tampa Bay, and they'll have to throw to stay caught up. I mean, a lot of those targets will probably go to legend Cordero Patterson, but I still see a lot of targets going to Russell Gage. He's going for 5,300 on DraftKings and 5,900 on FanDuel. I think he's a good sleeper candidate as well as a strong PPR play as well. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game script is there. The matchup is there. Dallas, of course, Tampa Bay has that pass funnel defense. You just can't run against them, so you have to pass, and teams really don't even attempt to run against the Buccaneers anymore, with the exception to that Washington game. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to pass a lot. The opportunities will be there. You know how I feel about picking Falcons players in anything fantasy related, so I'm always going to be a little nervous, but teams have really been concentrating on stopping Pitts, which has opened up opportunities for Zacchaeus and Gage on the outside. So I think Gage has as much opportunity as anybody to have big volume this week and maybe be a really big surprise sleeper.
They're playing to win, and I think, they're going to be slinging it around, so we'll see what happens, though. It's a weird matchup.
Love it. I love the confidence going back to Atlanta.
Yeah, I guess.
All right. So for my next pick, I am going deeper than any of us have ever gone before. I'm going deep, deep down into the depths of the wide receiver position. I'm going to rock bottom on this one, almost. For $3,100 on DraftKings, you can get Jawan Jennings.
You might not know who this guy is.
Of the San Francisco 49ers. This, again, the deepest sleeper I've ever taken, or either of us have ever taken that wasn't our deep sleeper. He stepped in as wide receiver 2 when Debo went down last week. Debo, of course, dealing with that nagging groin injury and is not going to play this week. And Jawan Jennings was the one who caught a touchdown pass after Debo left the game. So he appears to be the wide receiver 2 in San Francisco, which is a role that certainly carries some merit. It's a favorable matchup. San Francisco passing offense and wide receivers torched Seattle when they played back in Week 4. And lastly, he's a big body. He's a big red zone threat. I think the Seahawks should be really focused on stopping Kittle, particularly in the red zone. And Seahawks been a little bit better defensively of late, been pretty good at stopping the run. The way to beat them has really been through the air. I think it's a big game for Jimmy G here. Jimmy G's a great sleeper candidate at quarterback. And I think, Ayuk is going to certainly get his. Kittle's going to get his, but there's enough volume there in this game, I think, where somebody else can have a surprise 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. I think that guy is Jawan Jennings.
I do too, and I think they came out and literally said that he is the next man up. He's a wide receiver too. And I really like this pick a lot. It's a fun one because you can spend a lot of your money on these big studs, and then you can just plug this guy in for dirt cheap. It's insane, and it's a good piece of the puzzle. I like it a lot. It's fun. Awesome. So for my second pick, I'm going with running back Sony Michel. Now, news broke on Monday that Darrell Henderson suffered a quad strain in last week's matchup, which means Michel might be in line to start in Week 13. However, I believe yesterday, we're shooting this on Thursday, they said Henderson might have a chance to play. However, I still think Sony Michel is going to get a decent workload. It's tough to know if Henderson will suit up or not, but Henderson has never really been a fast healer. And in my eyes, either way, I think Sony Michel is just a good, cheap option for this week. He's going for 4,300 on DraftKings and 5,300 on FanDuel, and he takes on the Jaguars. I mean, the Jaguars have been decent on defense, but I mean, do I need to say more? He takes on the Jags. So he's not just a dweeby backup either. He's a solid player, and I don't know. What do you think about this? I feel like if Henderson does not play, he's a smash play. You should play him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
if he does, I'd have a little hesitant to start him, but I mean, we're shooting this on Thursday.
I love that description. He is not just a dweeby backup.
Yeah.
He is a former first-round pick.
Right.
And I do agree. I think he has value in this game regardless of if Henderson plays or not, for the simple reason that Henderson's soft tissue injury, I don't think they're going to push him too hard.
No, it's against the
in
Jags.
this game.
They should be up.
They should be able to get up early and often in this one, and then give their star running back some rest and lean on Sony Michel. That's why they brought Sony Michel in.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you fire Sony Michel up in DFS, whether or not Henderson is active. Obviously, in redraft leagues, if Henderson is active, you probably have better options than Sony Michel.
Yeah.
But in a DFS format, when you're trying to find a sleeper, 15 touches for Sony Michel with Henderson active is not out of the question.
Yeah.
25 touches for Michel without Henderson playing is almost guaranteed. So, yes, if Henderson doesn't play, we're demanding you to start Sony Michel in DFS,
Yes.
Almost like Dearness Johnson from a couple weeks ago.
Exactly, yeah. We'll take a starting running back anytime.
Yes. All right, so for my last pick, I am going to the tight end position, which I don't think I've done yet
First
on
time,
this show.
yeah.
My first time touching the tight end position. I'm going with Foster Moreau, the tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders. His DraftKings price is only $2,700, and this is just about value, opportunity, and matchup for me more than anything. He played 100% of the snaps last week following Waller's injury. He did not come off the field when Waller went down. He plays a lot of snaps even when Waller is active and does have some value there. But Waller's definitely not playing this week. We don't need to see practice reports to know that. The Washington pass defense, as you know, has been a defense we've picked on this show all year long. It's abysmal. It's dead last in the league. So the matchup is very favorable. And it's value, right? The tight end position is really, really important to what Las Vegas wants to do. It's not just the talent of Darren Waller. Their whole offense is based around the tight end position. You can't change that in 1 week. They're still going to focus on the tight end position, and Foster Moreau has talent. This guy's a former third-round pick, which for a tight end, there's generally only a couple of tight ends who go prior to round 4 or 5 in the NFL draft. So this guy's got some pedigree, and there's a sneaky high over-under for this game. It's 49.5. I wouldn't normally consider that a high over-under, but for this particular matchup, the Raiders versus Washington, I think Raiders are favored by 2.5. So it's not like one team is expected to blow out the other team. That's kind of a high over-under for this matchup. So it's bigger than I expected. Vegas usually knows something that I don't know, especially when they're talking about their very own team.
Yeah.
So I trust that over-under. I think there'll be some points scored in this game. Both of these defenses have been pretty bad, and Foster Moreau seems as likely as anybody to have 6-7 catches and fall in the end zone.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot, and I mean, we hate to say it, but the Raiders have been playing pretty good on offense, and I think a lot of these targets will go to Foster Moreau. I remember him catching, it was like early on in the season, even when Waller was in, he was getting action. And it was like, who is this guy? And now, and here he is. He's got an opportunity to start, and it should, I think he started a couple of games ago when Waller was
when
out,
you look at this offense, it does come down to also like who else. I mean, Zay Jones is their de facto number 1 wide receiver. He was a guy I was considering for this show as well this week, but I really, really wanted Foster Moreau. I mean, Foster Moreau might be the best pass catcher out there right now because Henry Ruggs, of course, gone. Hunter Renfrow is obviously their best true pass catcher. But I do think the defense is, or Washington's going to focus heavily on stopping Hunter Renfrow because that's their number 1 option. So after Renfrow, where do you go? And I think you go to Moreau.
Or you can go to my last pick. Well, I'm staying on the Raiders offense. We're going with DeSean Jackson. All right, so it's definitely a little bit of a different play than Foster. He's the cheapest of my bunch. He's going for $4,200 on DraftKings and $5,200 on FanDuel. And as it's known, Jackson has always been big play potential. It only takes a few snaps for him to be fantasy relevant. And as Corey's mentioned, Darren Waller, he's not going to play, which should open up some targets for either Foster or Jackson. He takes on Washington, who allows the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And this is kind of a play where it's like if you want to roll the dice for a big potential, couple catches, I would scoop him up for cheap. I don't know, that's my pitch.
Yeah, no, lottery ticket, absolutely.
It's one of those cheap plays.
Again, I'm sorry I didn't mention DeSean Jackson. I was talking about who else. But I went with Waller's replacement. Lucas went with Henry Ruggs' replacement.
Yeah.
And that's how this offense was built. This offense was built around Waller soaking up the inside, the middle of the field, with Ruggs opening things up for Waller by going deep. When teams concentrate on Waller, they have to figure out a way to stop Ruggs. When teams concentrate on stopping Ruggs, they have to figure out a way to stop Waller. You can't stop both simultaneously. And these guys are the Walmart version, I guess, of Waller and Henry Ruggs, because they're going to look, I assume, to do the exact same things that this Raiders offense has done all year. And Derek Carr's been slinging it, so I love DeSean Jackson. He's a great lottery ticket and obviously big play potential we all know he's had for many, many years in this league.
Right. All right, well, we should get to our deep sleeper, but first you want to talk about the Sports Hub again?
We are going to talk about the Sports Hub. We also are going to hear from the viewers. We've got a deep sleeper that was tweeted to us from a loyal viewer of ours, and we're going to talk about that as well, but we're going to talk about the Hub before we get to that and our deep sleepers. So make the Sports Hub your game day destination this weekend. Bar opens at 10 a.m., kitchen opens at 11 a.m. Be sure to register for that Rec Tech Grill each and every weekend. You can register once per weekend, all football season long. They've got $5 apps, $5 bloodies, and screwdrivers on Sundays. It really is the best spot just to come and root on your fantasy teams. Another good weekend here on Fox. We have a single header on Sunday featuring the Cardinals, first place in the NFC, taking on the Bears. A lot of interest with what's going on in Chicago, certainly, and of course the Cardinals in first place. So Packer fans will be very interested in what happens in that game, with the Packers being on a bye this week. Also a big weekend on Fox, not just on Sunday, but also on Saturday. On Saturday, we have the Big Ten Championship between my Michigan Wolverines. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Michigan man, born and raised. So the Michigan Wolverines finally making it back to the Big Ten Championship, taking on Iowa. Certainly a good contingent of Iowa fans in our viewership area. So good luck to the Hawkeyes, but not good luck to the Hawkeyes. We also have Badgers versus Marquette on Saturday morning. Tune in to Fox, rip off the handle on Saturday all day long and Sunday all day long. So enjoy the action on Fox. Look forward to a big weekend. All right, we're going to talk about our Twitter sleepers of the week. So thank you to our viewers for tweeting it at us. And we are hearing from @Stu. Great Twitter handle.
How many U's is that?
Looks like there's about 7 or 8 U's in there.
That's a lot of U's.
And @Stu says Josh Reynolds, going for 3,400 on DraftKings, seemed to emerge as a top option for the Lions, getting healthy snap counts, positive game script expected. He did put in quotations, I suppose Goff can cancel that out. He's not wrong there. And only 5 targets against the Bears, but he did find the end zone. So great feedback from @Stu, and he's very right. I think Josh Reynolds is a great pick. He was somebody I was actually looking at as well.
I was looking at Jared Goff, to be honest, and it was kind of an uglier, he was a great quarterback option. He's cheap, so keep him in mind, but they got to get a win sometime, man. They got to put things together.
Yeah.
And it could be this week, but yeah, no, I like Josh Reynolds a lot.
The game script tends to be there for the Lions.
Yeah.
They're going to be passing the ball a lot. You're missing DeAndre Swift. I do think Jamal Williams is another smash play this week without DeAndre Swift. But to say that Jamal Williams is going to soak up all of DeAndre Swift's targets, the most heavily targeted running back in the NFL, seems like a reach. Those targets got to go somewhere. I think Josh Reynolds is as good of a play as any.
I do too.
Nice pick, Stu.
Thanks, Stu.
All right, deep sleeper time. Lucas, who we got this week?
We're going with Nyheim Hines. Now, you may know his name from that one Jets game where he just vultured 2 touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor, and he even had a massive game. But yeah, Nyheim Hines is going for 4,000 on DraftKings.
Running back, that's the running back minimum.
Yeah, running back minimum, and then he's going for 5,300 on FanDuel. Corey, you want to tell us a little bit about Hines?
Let's talk about Hines. Yeah, I kind of screwed the team here by taking a wide receiver who was just $100 over the wide receiver minimum. So we basically were forced to look at all the minimum prices for skill position players for our deep sleeper. And Nyheim Hines at the running back minimum, 4,000 on DraftKings, represents great value. The game script against Houston should lighten Jonathan Taylor's workload, I think, in the second half. Indianapolis has a bye next week, so I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of give Jonathan Taylor almost back-to-back weeks off in a way. Use him a lot in the first half like they normally would. But look, Indy's favored by 9 points in this game. That seems light to me. I really do think that this is a blowout, and they get up early and often. I think Taylor sits on the sidelines. Who's going to be the next guy? It's going to be Nyheim Hines. And as Lucas mentioned, in that Week 9 blowout win against the Jets, Hines scored 20.8 points. That was his biggest game of the year. He also, I think, has some hidden value as a punt returner. Now, it's worth noting that there's no punt return TDs yet in 2021, period, in the entire league, which is crazy to think. But that's bound to change at some point, right? And Nyheim Hines is a guy who has punt return TDs in his career. He's a big playmaker. I mean, he could potentially sneak in and get you a punt return touchdown. And the thing to remember here is he still is the primary pass catcher in this backfield. Jonathan Taylor has been more involved in the passing game this year. But Nyheim Hines, a little known fact, has the second highest target per route run percentage amongst running backs in the league through these 12 weeks at 27%. So that means a quarter of the time that he runs a route, he gets thrown at. So he's going to have value in PPR. He always has a safe PPR floor. And in a game where Indy should win handily, he's going to get a bigger workload than he normally would.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, all the reasons you just said, their bye is next week. They're looking at the future here with JT. Like, they're going to use him when they get to the playoffs. And, yeah, let's just give Hines the bigger workload.
That's right.
In this easy matchup, in my
right.
opinion. So there's our picks for Week 13. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Follow us on Twitter at FFInsiders2548. Send us some of your questions, start-sit decisions. We'll be there answering on Sunday morning. And hope you guys have a good week in fantasy.
Good luck.
Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub.